feel really like sheltered. I feel like I've been given everything and I've taken it all for granted.
The new documentary film Tanzania, A Journey Within, is about two unlikely friends, a privileged young woman, American woman, and a Tanzanian scientist and philosopher on a journey through Tanzania. Welcome back to Arise on Screen. I'm Mike Sargent. I recently sat down with the film's award-winning director, Sylvia Caminer, and one of her subjects in the film, Kristen Kenney. I asked her, how did she come to do this project?
I had always wanted to go to Africa, and I had been looking for the right reason. I thought, gosh, if I could go with work and see kind of the inner being of the continent, and in particular Tanzania. And I met Kristen. We had a mutual friend, and Kristen and Ven were already planning to go. And so we started talking. I think Chris was thinking maybe at the beginning it would be more like a travel show, and it was just going to be her, kind of fish out of water. And then I met Ven, and I thought, well, I think we've got a bigger story here, and I wanted them both to be in the film. And from the beginning, Chris and Ven were both pretty receptive.
Well, now let me ask you, Kristen, tell me a little bit about Ven. How did you two meet, and what was the bond you had before this trip you would want to take a trip with?
Yeah, you know, Ven is that kind of guy when you talk to him, everyone loves him. His spirit, his energy is just contagious. And we first met on the soccer field at University of Miami. We both went to college there. And so soccer really brought us together. And every time we'd be out there playing, he'd be like, Malaika, Malaika. Like, I like this guy. He's a lot of fun. Yeah. So our bond just started playing soccer. And he always said, I wish you could come see where I grew up. And I was always intrigued and curious. I'm a curious soul. So when I had the opportunity to go, as much as I was a little scared and timid, being, you know, an American, naive girl, something just made me want to go. And it just all worked.
Well, there are a number of things about the film that I really found fascinating and moving, but one of them is, you know, you climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh, yeah.
And when you film it, you're there before they get there. So tell me about some of the dangers of filming, especially there and in Africa in general.
Yeah, well, Kili was a challenge. I think it was tougher, right, than any of us thought.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Chris was vomiting day one. Night one.
Altitude sickness.
Yeah, we were in one tent, so I was like, Chris, you got to get outside of the tent. And then, you know, Ven had a few hard days. The cold is what was really hard for him, and I had a blinding headache for at least 24 hours during that ice storm. And the hard thing was batteries for the camera, computer batteries, because you had to download. We didn't have enough cards, memory cards. And then even just being safe, you know, I mean, some of that, you've seen the film somewhere, he's pulling her up. Yeah. You're on a ledge that, wow, if you fall.
I mean, it's pretty steep. And especially the night you summit. It was so cold.
Yeah. There was a windstorm. I mean, it was 70-mile-per-hour winds.
Just knocks you over. But yeah, I mean,
she fell like 5 times.
Yeah, I fell.
Pushed you over. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask you now, Kristen, a couple things. Now, you got malaria, and that allowed you, or, you know, inspired you to start this organization. But in the movie, you say how you were soulless before you went on this journey, and that this changed you. Tell me, elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, I was inside a bubble, and so many of us can be trapped inside this bubble and only consumed and concerned with what's happening in their life. And once going to Africa, it opened my eyes to a bigger world, you know, what really is happening and how, you know, it touched me, how I could make a difference in a simple way. So I think for me, I found a passion that's more than just, you know, superficial or just going through our day-to-day lives. It became bigger, a bigger purpose. It was just unbelievable spiritual trip.
Well, tell me about when you got sick and what that was like, and then a little bit about your organization.
Well, getting malaria was kind of the icing on the cake, because the whole trip was just a
positive win.
Yeah, I turned the negative situation into a positive, I'll tell you that, because I do think it's a blessing in disguise. It was the last week of our trip, and I was in the village, and I had skipped a dose of malaria, and it takes about 7 to 10 days to really feel the symptoms, and I felt those symptoms. And you kind of can tell. I remember reading the CDC website, not taking it seriously. Hey, I'm not going to get this foreign, you know, disease. What? I'm American, you know. And then my joints, they were aching. It feels like a hammer's hitting your joints, and really painful. And I took a 6-hour bus to the Bacoba Hospital. And it was a long journey just to get medicine. 2 clinics turned me away. The hospital was able to treat me, and for 4 days I was on an IV in the hospital.
Wow.
And the cost to treat all of that, shockingly, was $7. So that's when it hit me, and I realized at that point, this is kind of my calling, because how can malaria kills a child every minute, and it is so prevalent in that area. So I came back wanting to make a difference and started Malaika for Life, and Buy a Bracelet, Save a Life through that, after that.
Well, I have a question for both of you. What do you think from this has had to be a journey for both of you on different levels. What do you think most people have a view of Africa, especially in other countries, that is completely wrong and that you hope maybe they'll get out of this movie?
For me, the biggest thing, and I think we all walked away with this, was that life can be challenging in Africa. They can, worry about life and death situations every day, clean water, food, but they are happier and celebrate life more than we know how to.
Every day.
Every moment. And the other thing is that they tend to look within, because they can't solve problems or find solutions outside of themselves because they don't have the money or the technology. So they have to look within and cure themselves, heal themselves from within. So they have a deeper contact and relationship within their soul, I think, than Westerners do.
Definitely, I agree with that. The celebration of life was huge over there. And it's so easy to not live in the moment and not appreciate what you have. And you see that happening every day when you're there.
Now, what can people do with your nonprofit or through your nonprofit to help out?
They can visit malaikaforlife.org, which Malaika is angel in Swahili. Or you can Google Buy a Bracelet, Save a Life, it'll pop up. But basically the bracelets, I'm wearing them here, Sylvia's rocking them. Every bracelet is made by a woman in Tanzania, so it helps her and support her livelihood. And then the proceeds fund malaria medicine. But the immediate action is all about the film. The film is getting that message out, and Buy a Ticket, Save a Life is the campaign that we created.
Right. Yeah, with every ticket we sell, whether you buy one for a Monday afternoon, or even if you live out of state and you say, gosh, I want to be a part of this movement, every ticket that we sell will save one child's life. We've partnered with Malaria No More, that Malaika for Life has also been working with, and we give proceeds from every single ticket to save one child. So that means that one child in Africa will get the malaria test and will get a full dose of malaria medicine.
Wow. Well, I'm going to buy a couple bracelets when we're done. So,
all right.
Well, thank you both for being here. Really fascinating documentary. And we'll be right back. You're watching Arise on Screen.
First chance you get, what are you going to do? Put a bullet in the back of my head. He could have killed you already. This is going to be a lot of fun. Turn down for what?
Coming up, in the new film Brick Mansions, Paul Walker plays an undercover cop in a future Detroit ghetto, fighting a day-to-day battle against corruption. But the stakes get even higher when he uncovers a plot to destroy the entire city. When we return, here on Arise on Screen.
Brick Mansions. It's so dangerous we built a wall around it. No one gets in. Now their leaders got the mayor and half the city hostage.
I say we start the bidding at 30 million.
In a future Detroit, the most dangerous criminals live inside the walls of the city's brick mansions. Paul Walker stars in what was his last completed film alongside RZA and parkour founder David Bell. Hi, I'm Mike Sargent, and this is Arise on Screen. With me in the studio are film critics Julian Roman and Julie Walker, entertainment journalist. So I like this film. Now, I had seen the original B-13, District B-13, the French film. I didn't see its sequel. But what worked better in the original, A, they had more of David Bell. B, his partner also knew parkour, so he was doing it. And C, there's sort of a surreality to the film. This takes place a little bit in the future, and it's supposed to be somewhat of a future Detroit, but it didn't quite have that otherworldly feeling that the original did. Now, you liked this film, you thought the action was good, it worked for you, and you liked David Bell, and you think he's kind of the new Bruce Lee.
I do, and when you say like, that's all subjective.
Okay.
I did not go into this film expecting as much as I came out with.
Okay.
I do like parkour a lot. It's really interesting. It's that free running where you use your body and your momentum, and so it's instead of guns and that type of thing, he used parkour to sort of...
to combat the bad guys.
Exactly. And I enjoyed that. And David Bell, who was in the original, he is, you know, in the opening sequence, and there's so much there to see of him and to like of him, and you wonder, is he the star of the movie? But it's a great play because on the friendship between the two, or the unlikely friendship, as we had been talking about, you know, because Paul Walker comes in and he has his own style and his own way of doing things.
Right. Well, you know, now, Julian, you felt that this movie, the action sequence in the beginning of Casino Royale, which was also parkour, which was one of his students, you thought that opening sequence was better than this whole movie.
Yes, it disappointed me, and it's entertaining. It's got a good action vibe to it. I wouldn't say it's a poor action film, but when you compare the opening scene from Casino Royale, and Sebastian Foucan is an actual disciple of David Bell.
Yes, he is.
I mean, those 10 minutes are better than all the action in this entire movie. And that kind of speaks poorly about this movie. But I think maybe for the parkour neophyte, they'll be impressed. But I mean, the free running stunts are very popular, so I did expect more and did not really get it.
Well, you know, it's funny. I did expect more of the parkour as well. I thought in a way that having to have Paul Walker, who does sort of that hyper, I'm a badass cop kind of fighting, kind of took away, because, you know, we don't really know why he's such a great fighter and why he could even hold his own with David Bell. You kind of wanted to see more of David Bell doing what he did, or I did anyway. But it's an unabashed B movie. I don't think it really ever rises beyond that. Do you agree?
I agree. I'm not sure it was made as for any other reason. It's a remake of a French film, and they're capitalizing on that.
Well, I think that they were because it's a sequel, I think this was being, when you see the film, it's really set up to, like, they could go on, and I think this was being set up to have a sequel, and this to be a new series for Paul Walker if he had lived. That's what I came away with. So our next film is a very interesting film. It's called Locke. Tom Hardy plays a man who takes a road trip that will change everything in his life in the course of 90 minutes.
Hi, love.
Hello, Katrina. I have something to say.
What happened?
I'm not coming home.
Now, I was surprised. This is filmed similar to Buried, where it's just one guy in one location, and we stay with him. We hear a lot of people, a lot of great character actors on the phone. And for me, I thought that this worked surprisingly. But you tell me, Julian, it didn't hold your interest for too long?
No, Mike, I got bored. And let me say, the director and the screenplay writer, Stephen Knight, is a brilliant guy. He did Dirty Pretty Things. He did Eastern Promises. An excellent director and writer. But the problem with the movie is you're watching a guy drive a car for 90 minutes. And what happens to him, without revealing any spoilers, is not exactly spectacular. It's personal problems. It's professional problems. And it's interesting to a point, but literally you're watching a guy drive a car for an hour and a half. And after a while, I'm like, I'm stuck in traffic, but I'm in a movie theater.
Got you. Well, now, Julie, you didn't feel the same way. You liked this film. You thought Tom Hardy and his acting ability actually pulled this off, and you were engaged.
I absolutely was. I think this movie is not for everyone. It's cerebral.
Clearly not for Julian.
Not for me, no.
It's cerebral. It's really interesting the way they decided to do a movie with just a single person, and the only other voices you hear are the people that he's on the phone with. Sometimes I did want a little more, but then I had to remind myself that this is a good movie. This is not what we traditionally are getting out of our movies, and it was very, you know, it takes a lot of faith to be able to put this movie out there. Because
I agree with that. It's a risk to make a film like this, to just put one actor in a car, and they shoot it from every angle you could possibly imagine. And we see him on the street, we see the car pass, we're on the side, we're on the front, we're on the dashboard. But I'm somewhere in between the two of you. I wasn't bored. I felt that it held my attention throughout. The ending was a little bit of a surprise. I guess I was expecting at some point to see somebody, but where it went, that's where it could go. But in the end, I thought it was a decent movie. I think I liked it a lot better than you.
Right.
Julian.
Well, I mean, my problem with the film is it's very well acted, it's very well directed. I mean, artistically, it's not a bad film, but it doesn't really excite me. You're watching a guy in a car for 90 minutes, and when I see a film, I want a cinematic experience, and I feel it just doesn't deliver that.
All right, well. Next time, hopefully, we'll all agree, okay? It's been a lot of fun. And we'll be back. I'm Mike Sargent, and next week we'll be here to talk more movies on Arise on Screen.